Chapter 13 The Way of Transgressors. Davy and Dora were ready for Sunday school. They were going alone, which did not often happen, for Mrs. Lynde always attended Sunday school. But Mrs. Lynde had twisted her ankle and was lame, so she was staying home this morning. The twins were also to represent the family at church, for Anne had gone away the evening before to spend Sunday with friends and comedy, and Marilla had one of her headaches. Davy came downstairs slowly. Dora was waiting in the hall for him, having been made ready by Mrs. Lynde. Davy had attended to his own preparations. He had a cent in his pocket for the Sunday school collection, and a 5-cent piece for the church collection. He carried his Bible in one hand and his Sunday school quarterly in the other. He knew his lesson and his golden text and his catechism question perfectly. Had he not studied them perforce in Mrs. Lynde's kitchen all last Sunday afternoon? Davy therefore should have been in a placid frame of mind. As a matter of fact, despite text and catechism, he was inwardly as a ravening wolf. Mrs. Lynde limped out of her kitchen as she joined Dora. "Are you queen?" she demanded severely. "Yes, all of me that shows," Davy answered with a defiant scowl. Mrs. Rachel sighed. She had her suspicions about Davy's neck and ears, but she knew that if she attempted to make a personal examination, Davy would likely take to his heels, and she could not pursue him today. "Well, be sure you behave yourselves," she warned them. "Don't walk in the dust. Don't stop in the porch to talk to the other children. Don't squirm or wriggle in your places. Don't forget the golden text. Don't lose your collection or forget to put it in. Don't whisper at prayer time, and don't forget to pay attention to the sermon." Davy deigned no response. He marched away down the lane, followed by the meek Dora, but his soul seethed within. Davy had suffered, or thought he had suffered, many things at the hands and tongue of Mrs. Rachel Lynde since she had come to Green Gables, for Mrs. Lynde could not live with anybody, whether they were 9 or 90, without trying to bring them up properly. And it was only the preceding afternoon that she had interfered to influence Marilla against allowing Davy to go fishing with the Timothy Cottons. Davy was still boiling over this. As soon as he was out of the lane, Davy stopped and twisted his countenance into such an unearthly and terrific contortion that Dora, although she knew his gifts in that respect, was honestly alarmed lest he should never in the world be able to get it straightened out again. "Darn her!" exploded Davy. "Oh, Davy, don't swear!" gasped Dora in dismay. "Darn isn't swearing, not real swearing, and I don't care if it is," retorted Davy recklessly. "Well, if you must say dreadful words, don't say them on Sunday," pleaded Dora. Davy was as yet far from repentance, but in his secret soul he felt that perhaps he had gone a little too far. "I'm going to invent a swear word of my own," he declared. "God will punish you if you do," said Dora solemnly. "Then I think God is a mean old scamp," retorted Davy. "Doesn't he know a fellow must have some way of expressing his feelings?" "Davy!" said Dora. She expected that Davy would be struck down dead on the spot, but nothing happened. "Anyway, I ain't going to stand any more of Mrs. Lynde's bossing," sputtered Davy. "And Marilla may have the right to boss me, but she hasn't. I'm going to do every single thing she told me not to do. You watch me." In grim, deliberate silence, while Dora watched him with the fascination of horror, Davy stepped off the green grass of the roadside, ankle deep into the fine dust which 4 weeks of rainless weather had made on the road, and marched along in it, shuffling his feet viciously until he was enveloped in a hazy cloud. "That's the beginning," he announced triumphantly, "and I'm going to stop in the porch and talk as long as there's nobody there to talk to. I'm going to squirm and wriggle and whisper, and I'm going to say I don't know the golden text, and I'm going to throw away both of my collections right now." And Davy hurled cent and nickel over Mr. Barry's fence with fierce delight.
"Satan made you do that,"
said Dora reproachfully. "He didn't," cried Davy indignantly. "I just thought it out for myself, and I thought of something else. I'm not going to Sunday school or church at all. I'm going up to play with the Cottons. They told me yesterday they weren't going to Sunday school today because their mother was away and there was nobody to make them. Come along, Dora. We'll have a great time."
"I don't want to go,"
protested Dora. "You've got to," said Davy. "If you don't come, I'll tell Marilla that Frank Bell kissed you in school last Monday."
"I couldn't help it. I didn't know he was going to,"
cried Dora, blushing scarlet. "Well, you didn't swam him or seem a bit cross," retorted Davy. "I'll tell her that too if you don't come. We'll take that shortcut up this field."
"I'm afraid of those cows,"
protested poor Dora, seeing a prospect of escape. "The very idea of your being scared of those cows," scoffed Davy. "Why, they're both younger than you."
"They're bigger,"
said Dora. "They won't hurt you. Come along now. This is great. When I grow up, I ain't going to bother going to church at all. I believe I can get to heaven by myself."
"You'll go to the other place if you break the Sabbath day,"
said unhappy Dora, following him sorely against her will. But Davy was not scared yet. Hal was very far off, and the delights of a fishing expedition with the Cottons were very near. He wished Dora had more spunk. She kept looking back as if she were going to cry every minute, and that spoiled a fellow's fun. Hang girls, anyway. Davy did not say darn this time even in thought. He was not sorry yet that he had said it once, but it might be as well not to tempt the unknown powers too far on one day. The small Cottons were playing in their backyard, and hailed Davy's appearance with whoops of delight. Pete, Tommy, Adolphus, and Mirabel Cotton were all alone. Their mother and older sisters were away. Dora was thankful Mirabel was there at least. She had been afraid she would be alone in a crowd of boys. Mirabel was almost as bad as a boy. She was so noisy and sunburned and reckless, but at least she wore dresses. "We've come to go fishing," announced Davy. "Whoop!" yelled the Cottons. They rushed away to dig worms at once, Mirabel leading the van with a tin can. Dora could have sat down and cried. Oh, if only that hateful Frank Bell had never kissed her. Then she could have defied Davy and gone to her beloved Sunday school. They dared not, of course, go fishing on the pond where they would be seen by people going to church. They had to resort to the brook in the woods behind the Cotton house. But it was full of trout, and they had a glorious time that morning. At least the Cottons certainly had, and Davy seemed to have it. Not being entirely bereft of prudence, he had discarded boots and stockings and borrowed Tommy Cotton's overalls. Thus encountered bog and marsh and undergrowth had no terrors for him. Dora was frankly and manifestly miserable. She followed the others in their peregrinations from pool to pool, clasping her Bible and quarterly tightly, and thinking with bitterness of soul of her beloved class, where she should be sitting that very moment, before a teacher she adored. Instead, here she was, roaming the woods with those half-wild Cottons, trying to keep her boots clean and her pretty white dress free from rents and stains. Mirabel had offered the loan of an apron, but Dora had scornfully refused. The trout bit as they always do on Sundays. In an hour the transgressors had all the fish they wanted, so they returned to the house, much to Dora's relief. She sat primly on a hen coop in the yard, while the others played an uproarious game of tag, and then they all climbed the top of the pig house roof and cut the initials on the saddle board. The flat-roofed henhouse and the pile of straw beneath gave Davy another inspiration. They spent a splendid half-hour climbing on the roof and diving off into the straw with whoops and yells. But even unlawful pleasures must come to an end. When the rumble of wheels over the pond bridge told that people were going home from church, Davy knew they must go. He discarded Tommy's overalls, resumed his own rightful attire, and turned away from his string of trout with a relief. No use to think of taking them home. "Well, hadn't we a splendid time?" he demanded defiantly as they went down the hill field.
"I hadn't,"
said Dora flatly.
"and I don't believe you had, really, either,"
she added, with a flash of insight that was not to be expected of her. "I had so," cried Davy, but the voice of one who doth protest too much. "No wonder you hadn't, just sitting there like a mule."
"I ain't going to associate with the Cottons,"
said Dora loftily. "The Cottons are all right," retorted Davy, "and they have far better times than we have. They do just as they please, and say just what they like before everybody. I'm going to do that too after this."
"There are lots of things you wouldn't dare say before everybody,"
averred Dora. "No, there isn't."
"There is too. Would you,"
demanded Dora gravely,
"would you say tomcat before the minister?"
This was a staggerer. Davy was not prepared for such a concrete example of the freedom of speech, but one did not have to be consistent with Dora. "Of course not," he admitted sulkily. "Tomcat isn't a holy word. I wouldn't mention such an animal before a minister at all."
"But if you had to,"
persisted Dora. "I'd call it a Thomas pussy," said Davy.
"I think gentleman cat would be more polite,"
reflected Dora. "You thinking?" retorted Davy with withering scorn. Davy was not feeling comfortable, though he would have died before he admitted it to Dora, now that the exhilaration of truant delights had died away. His conscience was beginning to give him salutary twinges. After all, perhaps it would have been better to have gone to Sunday school and church. Mrs. Lynde might be bossy, but there was always a box of cookies in her kitchen cupboard, and she was not stingy. At this inconvenient moment, Davy remembered that when he had torn his new school pants the week before, Mrs. Lynde had mended them beautifully and never said a word to Marilla about them. "Were all your class in Sunday school today?"
"Yes, ma'am,"
said Davy with a gulp.
"All were there, except one."
"Did you see a golden text and catechism?"
"Yes, ma'am."
"Did you put your collection in?"
"Yes, ma'am."
"Was Mrs. Malcolm MacPherson in church?"
"I don't know."
This at least was the truth, thought wretched Davy. "Was the ladies' aid announced for next week?"
"Yes, ma'am."
Quakingly. "Was prayer meeting?"
I don't know."
"You should know. You should listen more attentively in the announcements. What was Mr. Harvey's text?" Davy took a frantic gulp of water and swallowed it and the last protest of conscience together. He glibly recited an old golden text learned several weeks ago. Fortunately, Mrs. Lynde now stopped questioning him, but Davy did not enjoy his dinner. He could only eat one helping of pudding. "What's the matter with you?" demanded justly astonished Mrs. Lynde. "Are you sick?" "No," muttered Davy. "You look pale. You better keep out of the sun this afternoon," admonished Mrs. Lynde.
"Do you know how many lies you told Mrs. Lynde?"
asked Dora reproachfully as soon as they were alone after dinner. Davy, goaded to desperation, turned fiercely. "I don't know, and I don't care," he said. "You just shut up, Dora Keefe." Then poor Davy betook himself to a secluded retreat behind the woodpile to think over the Way of Transgressors. Green Gables was wrapped in darkness and silence when Anne reached home. She lost no time going to bed, for she was very tired and sleepy. There had been several Avonlea jollifications the preceding week, involving rather late hours. Anne's head was hardly on her pillow before she was half asleep, but just then her door was softly opened and the pleading voice said,
Anne.
Anne sat up drowsily.
Davy, is that you? What is the matter?
A white clad figure flung itself across the floor and on the bed. Anne, sobbed Davy, getting his arms about her neck. I'm awful glad you're home. I couldn't go to sleep till I told somebody.
Told somebody what?
How miserable I am.
Why are you miserable, dear?
'Cause I was so bad today, Anne. Oh, I was awful bad. Badder than I've ever been yet.
What did you do?
Oh, I'm afraid to tell you. You'll never like me again, Anne. I couldn't say my prayers tonight. I couldn't tell God what I'd done. I was ashamed to have him know.
But he knew anyway, Davy.
That's what Dora said, but I thought perhaps he mightn't have noticed just at that time. Anyway, I'd rather tell you first.
Well, what is it you did?
Out it all came in a rush. I ran away from Sunday school and went fishing with the Cottons, and I told ever so many whoopers to Mrs. Lynde. Almost half a dozen, and I said a swear word, Anne, a pretty near swear word anyhow, and I called God names. There was silence. Davy didn't know what to make of it. Was Anne so shocked that she never would speak to him again? Anne, what are you going to do to me? He whispered.
Nothing, dear. You've been punished already, I think.
No, I haven't. Nothing's been done to me.
You've been very unhappy ever since you did wrong, haven't you?
You bet, said Davy emphatically.
That was your conscience punishing you, Davy.
What's my conscience? I want to know.
It's something in you, Davy, that always tells you when you are doing wrong and makes you unhappy if you persist in doing it. Haven't you noticed that?
Yes, but I didn't know what it was. I wish I didn't have it. I'd have lots more fun. Where is my conscience, Anne? I want to know. Is it in my stomach?
No, it's in your soul,
answered Anne, thankful for the darkness, since gravity must be preserved in serious matters. I suppose I can't get clear of it, then, said Davy with a sigh. Are you going to tell Marilla and Mrs. Lynde on me, Anne?
No, dear, I'm not going to tell anyone. You are sorry you were naughty, aren't you?
You bet.
And you'll never be bad like that again?
No, but, added Davy cautiously, I might be bad some other way.
You won't say naughty words or run away on Sundays or tell falsehoods to cover up your sins?
No, it doesn't pay, said Davy.
Well, Davy, just tell God you are sorry and ask him to forgive you.
Have you forgiven me, Anne?
Yes, dear.
Then, said Davy joyously, I don't care much whether God does or not.
Davy!
Oh, ask him. I'll ask him, said Davy quickly, scrambling off the bed, convinced by Anne's tone that he must have said something dreadful. I don't mind asking him, Anne. Please, God, I'm awful sorry I behaved bad today, and I'll try to be good on Sundays always, and please forgive me. There now, Anne.
Well, now, run off to bed like a good boy.
All right. Say I don't feel miserable anymore. I feel fine. Good night.
Good night.
Anne slipped down on her pillows with a sigh of relief. Oh, how sleepy she was. In another second, Anne. Davy was back again by her bed. Anne dragged her eyes open.
What is it now, dear?
She asked, trying to keep a note of impatience out of her voice. Anne, have you ever noticed just how Mr. Harrison spits? Do you suppose if I practice hard I can learn to spit just like him? Anne sat up.
Davy Keith,
she said.
Go straight to your bed and don't let me catch you out of it again tonight. Go, now.
Davy went and stood not upon the order of his going. Chapter 14. The Summons. Anne was sitting with Ruby Gillis in the Gillis garden after the day had crept lingeringly through it and was gone. It had been a warm, smoky summer afternoon. The world was in a splendor of outflowering. The idle valleys were full of hazes. The woodways were pranked with shadows, and the fields with the purple of the asters. Anne had given up a moonlight drive to the white sands beach that she might spend the evening with Ruby. She had so spent many evenings that summer, although she often wondered what good it did anyone, and sometimes went home deciding that she could not go again. Ruby grew paler as the summer waned. The White Sands school was given up. Her father thought it better that she shouldn't teach till New Year's, and the fancy work she loved oftener and oftener fell from hands grown too weary for it. But she was always gay, always hopeful, always chattering and whispering of her beaux, and their rivalries and despairs. It was this that made Anne's visits hard for her. What had once been silly or amusing was gruesome now. It was death peering through a willful mask of life. Yet Ruby seemed the queen to her, and never let her go until she had promised to come again soon. Mrs. Lynde grumbled about Anne's frequent visits, and declared she would catch consumption. Even Marilla was dubious. "Every time you go to see Ruby, you come home looking tired out," she said.
"It's so very sad and dreadful,"
said Anne in a low tone.
"Ruby doesn't seem to realize her condition in the least, and yet I somehow feel she needs help, craves it, and I want to give it to her and can't. All the time I'm with her, I feel as if I were watching her struggle with an invisible foe, trying to push it back with such feeble resistance as she has. That is why I come home tired."
But tonight Anne did not feel this so keenly. Ruby was strangely quiet. She said not a word about parties and drives and dresses and fellows. She lay in the hammock with her untouched work beside her, and a white shawl wrapped about her thin shoulders. Her long yellow braids of hair, how Anne had envied those beautiful braids in old school days, lay on either side of her. She had taken the pins out. They made her head ache, she said. The hectic flush was gone for the time, leaving her pale and childlike. The moon rose in the silvery sky, empearling the clouds around her. Below, the pond shimmered in its hazy radiance. Just beyond the Gillis homestead was the church with the old graveyard beside it. The moonlight shone on the white stones, bringing them out in queer-cut relief against the dark trees behind.
"How strange the graveyard looks by moonlight,"
said Ruby suddenly.
"How ghostly."
She shuddered.
"Anne, it won't be long now before I'll be lying over there. You and Diana and all the rest will be going about full of life, and I'll be there, in the old graveyard, dead."
The surprise of it bewildered Anne. For a few moments she could not speak.
"You know it's so, don't you?"
said Ruby insistently.
"Yes, I know,"
answered Anne in a low tone.
"Dear Ruby, I know." "Everybody knows it,"
said Ruby bitterly.
"I know it. I've known it all summer, though I wouldn't give in. And oh, Anne."
She reached out and caught Anne's hand pleadingly, impulsively.
"I don't want to die. I'm afraid to die." "Why should you be afraid, Ruby?"
asked Anne, quietly.
Because, oh, I'm not afraid, but I'll go to heaven, Anne. I'm a church member, but it'll be all so different. I think, and I get so frightened and homesick. Heaven must be very beautiful, of course. The Bible says so. But Anne, it won't be what I've been used to.
Through Anne's mind drifted an intrusive recollection of a funny story she had heard Philippa Gordon tell, the story of some old man who had said very much the same thing about the world to come. It had sounded funny then. She remembered how she and Priscilla had laughed over it. But it did not seem in the least humorous now, coming from Ruby's pale, trembling lips. It was sad, tragic, and true. Heaven could not be what Ruby had been used to. There had been nothing in her gay, frivolous life, her shallow ideals and aspirations, to fit her for that great change or make the life to come seem to her anything but alien and unreal and undesirable. Anne wondered helplessly what she could say that would help her. Could she say anything?
I think, Ruby,
she began hesitatingly, for it was difficult for Anne to speak to any one of the deepest thoughts of her heart, or the new ideas that had vaguely begun to shape themselves in her mind concerning the great mysteries of life here and hereafter, superseding her old childish conceptions, and was hardest of all to speak of them to such as Ruby Gillis.
I think perhaps we have very mistaken ideas about heaven, what it is and what it holds for us. I don't think it can be so very different from life here as most people seem to think. I believe we'll just go on living a good deal as we live here and be ourselves just the same, only it will be easier to be good and to follow the highest. All the hindrances and perplexities will be taken away, and we shall see clearly. Don't be afraid, Ruby. I can't help it,
said Ruby pitifully.
Even if what you say about heaven is true, and you can't be sure, it may be only the imagination of yours. It won't be just the same. It can't be. I want to go on living here. I'm so young, Anne. I haven't had my life. I fought so hard to live, and it isn't any use. I have to die and leave everything I care for.
Anne sat in a pain that was almost intolerable. She could not tell comforting falsehoods, and all that Ruby said was so horribly true. She was leaving everything she cared for. She had laid up her treasures on earth only. She had lived solely for the little things of life, the things that pass, forgetting the great things that go onward into eternity, bridging the gulf between the two lives, and making of death a mere passing from one dwelling to the other, from twilight to unclouded day. God would take care of her there, Anne believed. She would learn, but now it was no wonder her soul clung in blind helplessness to the only things she knew and loved. Ruby raised herself on her arm and lifted up her bright, beautiful blue eyes to the moonlit skies.
I want to live. I want to live like other girls. I want to be married, Anne, and have little children. You know, I always loved babies, Anne. I couldn't say this to anyone but you. I know you understand. And then poor Herb, he loves me and I love him, Anne. The others meant nothing to me, but he does. And if I could live, I would be his wife and be so happy. Oh, Anne, it's hard.
Ruby sank back on her pillows and sobbed convulsively. Anne pressed her hand in an agony of sympathy. Silent sympathy perhaps helped Ruby more than broken, imperfect words could have done, for presently she grew calmer and her sobs ceased.
It won't be very long now, Anne. I feel sure of that. And I'd rather have you than anyone else. I always liked you best of all the girls I went to school with. You were never jealous or mean like some of them were. Poor Em White was up to see me yesterday. You remember Em and I were such chums for years when we went to school. And then we quarreled the time of that school concert. We've never spoken to each other since. Wasn't it silly? Anything like that seems silly now. But Em and I made up the old quarrel yesterday. She said she'd have spoken years ago, only she thought I wouldn't. And I never spoke to her because I was sure she wouldn't speak to me. Isn't it strange how people misunderstand each other, Anne? Most of the trouble in life comes from misunderstanding, I think, said Anne. I must go now, Ruby. It's getting late, and you shouldn't be out in the damp. You'll come up soon again? Yes, very soon, and if there's anything I can do to help you, I'll be so glad. I know. You have helped me already. Nothing seems quite so dreadful now. Good night, Anne. Good night, dear.
Anne walked home very slowly in the moonlight. The evening had changed something for her. Life held a different meaning, a deeper purpose. On the surface it would go on just the same, but the deeps had been stirred. It must not be with her as with poor butterfly Ruby. When she came to the end of one life, it must not be to face the next with the shrinking terror of something wholly different, something for which accustomed thought and ideal and aspiration had unfitted her. The little things of life, sweet and excellent in their place, must not be the things lived for. The highest must be sought and followed. The life of heaven must be begun here on earth. That good night in the garden was for all time. Anne never saw Ruby in life again. The next night the AVIS gave a farewell party to Jane Andrews before her departure for the West. And while light feet danced and bright eyes laughed and merry tongues chattered, there came a summons to a soul in Avonlea that might not be disregarded or evaded. The next morning a word went from house to house that Ruby Gillis was dead. She had died in her sleep, painlessly and calmly, and on her face was a smile, as if after all death had come as a kindly friend to lend her over the threshold instead of the grisly phantom she had dreaded. Mrs. Rachel Lynde said emphatically after the funeral that Ruby Gillis was the handsomest corpse she ever laid eyes on. Her loveliness as she lay, white-clad, among the delicate flowers that Anne had placed about her, was remembered and talked of for years in Avonlea. Ruby had always been beautiful, but her beauty had been of the earthly. It had had a certain insolent quality in it, as if it vaunted itself in the beholder's eye. Spirit had never shone through it, intellect had never refined it. But death had touched it and consecrated it, bringing out delicate modellings and purity of outlines never seen before, doing what life and love and great sorrow and deep womanhood joys might have done for Ruby. Anne, looking down through a mist of tears at her old playfellow, thought she saw the face God had meant Ruby to have, and remembered it so always.